Hey everyone, today's going to be the first video of my NC Miata turbo track build. The car already has quite a bit done to it, but today we're going Today we're going to be doing the fuel pump as part of the turbo kit install. On this channel, I'm going to be doing a full Fab9 EFR Turbo kit install. So feel free to follow along if this is a kit you're considering for your car. Just to give you some background on my experience, I previously had a 525 wheel horsepower Mazda Miata that ran a Kraken EFR kit. Built that entire car in my garage, mostly using the car passion channels as my guide. The car passion channel is extremely helpful for, just finding information and just how to do everything, in your own garage. So shout out to Greg Peters for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the build. So for this car, I went with the DW300C fuel pump. So why am I doing the fuel pump? Well, the factory fuel pump is limited at about 270, 280 wheel horsepower. That's right about where this car is planning to be once I get it turboed. I want to run it pretty safely. It's on the stock 2.0. I'm actually running 2 of these pumps currently in my full bolt-on GTR. So it's a great pump. I haven't had any problems with it. I also ran a DW300 pump in my last Miata. It was, rock solid, never had any issues. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and go through the install process today. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna unplug your battery. Depending on where your battery is, that may be a little different, but you're gonna wanna undo the negative terminal on your battery. So for me, my battery's been relocated to the trunk. So we're gonna go in here. I got mine on a fuse and a breaker, so I can just press that button, break the connection, cut the power to the car. Again, if you have your battery up in the front, you're just gonna wanna disconnect your negative battery terminal and just set that to the side somewhere where it won't make contact. Again, you're working with fuel, so you wanna play it safe. Whenever you're working with fuel, I also recommend just having a fire extinguisher nearby. You can never be too safe when you're working with a flammable substance. Now we'll go ahead and get started on pulling out the fuel pump. All right, so the first step is going to be pulling your seats back and just kind of creating some room so you have room to work back here. Pull your seat belts out from where they go on the seats. It's pretty easy. Now you're going to want to remove the side pieces, the top piece. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do these. They are pretty easy. They have little pop clips right there. Pretty much you're going to want to remove all the pop clips that you see on the back piece here. So any of that are kind of facing, all these are kind of down everywhere. You're going to remove all those. You're also going to pop off this top piece. So this top piece, it just pops right off. So you're going to want to get something that you can wedge underneath there. I like using plastic tools. You can get some cheap plastic tools on Amazon pretty cheap. And you're just going to pop this off. It comes right off. So we're gonna set that out of the way. As you can see, I already took this one off, so we already got that, out of the way. Again, this is only held on by one piece, and there's some clips right here that pop right out. Mine may look a little different because I do have the aftermarket roll bar. Now you're gonna wanna pull off the sill. So this sill right here just pops right off. This is just on by some clips. It will take a little bit of force. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, I now got all the clips out of my car. There's quite a few, down here. Again, there's a bunch on the bottom right here. So make sure you get all those out, all the clips out. So again, I'm gonna remove this side now so you can kind of see where this is clipped in. So there's 2 clips right here, they pull out. So these clips are gonna pull out, and then the whole piece just comes up and out of the way. So pulled out, up and out of the way, pops right off. Now once you've got that done, this is the next piece. This just pops out. So this actually popped out pretty easy. I've done this before when I did my roll bar, so it came off a little bit easier. Don't lose these clips. That is pretty critical. These clips are what hold it in place. So make sure those either stay there or you can put them back into the piece. They go into the piece over here. So go ahead and pull this off. So pull this out of the way. This side. So it's going to be the bottom first. There we go. Pop right off. To the side. And we're going to go ahead and do this one. So that one's a little hung up right there on the bottom. So let's just go see where it is. Okay, it looks like it is just a little tab. Should pop right out of it. There we go. All right, the last piece to remove is this big top panel here. But before you can do that, Let's go ahead and make sure we get this cap piece off. So this cap piece has to be off in order to pull this back piece. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Here's our plastic tool I was talking about earlier. I got these on Amazon in a set for like $8. Highly recommend them. So we're gonna go ahead and go in here and pop that. There we go. As you see, mine's a little damaged. That was from the previous owner. They must use a screwdriver back when they did it. I use plastic tools to avoid putting marks like that. So highly recommend using plastic tool. That pops right off, and there you go. So you can see why I removed this. So it needs to get past there in order to come up and come out. So you're gonna push this in and pull up when you're trying to remove this panel. You also need to unclip it from up here. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. I'm gonna give it some pulls. See, these are just clips. This handle is gonna come out. So your handle for your top actually slides off of here. We're gonna go ahead and pop this side off as well. All right, so we got that off. Now we need to slide this handle off. Pretty sure, yep, there it pops downwards. So you're gonna pull this at a downward angle like that. And it'll pull off of there. So got that out of the way. That is done. Now you can see this is kind of loose, kind of flopping around. It's exactly what we want. You might want to do one last check. Make sure you got all of your pop clips. You know, there are some down here. Make sure they are gone. You want this thing fully loose, able to flop around. You do have your gas tank lever here, so keep that in mind when you're pulling this up. You can't just rip it straight up. You kind of got to maneuver it out and get that out of there. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. Remember how I said watch out for other clips? I forgot there are some clips that are on the inside once you pull off those panels. Mine wasn't coming up and I was like, what's going on? You probably left a clip. So here's that missing clip right here. Pull it right out. I'm gonna go this side, do the same thing. Pull this little clip out, boom, there we go. All right, now this thing's gonna come right out. Again, this, so you might have to push this with one of your hands to get it to clear. I can't hold the camera and do both at the same time, but again, the idea is push this in and pull up. At the same time, making sure this is getting pulled up and out here. All right, so if you do have a roll bar, you do have to undo this center console, some of these screws to give yourself a little bit of play here so you can get it past here. The reason is because when you have a roll bar, you have no room to go up. As you can see, I even had to cut this box in order to, clear the bars here. There's no room for it to go up to clear. So you're gonna have to pull it forward and then go up. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo these center console screws here. There's 1, 2, and 3. All right, so by loosening those bolts, I was able to kind of push this back and pull it over these lips. And so that's exactly what you're gonna wanna do is just undo these bolts. Again, if you don't have a roll bar, you're probably gonna be able to just pull it right out. Because I had a roll bar, I didn't have enough room to just go up. So I had to slowly work these over so I can now pull it out. As you see, it's now coming out and it comes right off. So there we go. Panel is out. Go ahead and set this to the side. Here we go. So here we are. We're at the fuel pump. That was pretty easy. Again, this is a pretty simple install. Next, we got to undo these screws that are holding this cover on. This is the fuel pump cover right here. So we're going to go ahead and undo those Phillips head screws. All right, got my 3 screws removed. This just comes right up. You're gonna see under there is an electrical connection. You're gonna want to undo that. There is a clip. Let's see if I can get a good picture for you. You're gonna push on this end of the clip and pull up. There we go, give it a little wiggle. Came right out. There we go. Now we can pull this out of the way. Remember that arrow goes forward, makes it really easy for the reinstall. Now we need to get a fuel line disconnect tool, and you're also going to get a few rags. You're going to get some fuel, sometimes coming out, it might be under a little bit of pressure, so get yourself some towels. Again, have a fire extinguisher ready because you are working with fuel, so it's always good to have one nearby. But now we're going to go ahead and disconnect this fuel line. Again, get some towels ready in case it leaks. All right, so I got my paper towels ready. I'm gonna go ahead and wedge some around here, just in various areas, because it's probably gonna go into the little cracks, it's always gonna flow downward. So, just be kind of prepared for that. And then I'll kind of keep one to the side just in case I'm gonna need it. So I like using the plastic fuel disconnect tools. A lot of these look very different. This one I like because it does give you a little bit of leverage, has a little handle on it. These are about $1 at your auto stores. I say avoid the metal ones. I've used metal ones in the past and never really had any good luck with them. So let's go ahead and get this off. All right, so I got the tool in place. Sorry I couldn't film doing that, but you just kind of slide it in there. What it does is it slides between these grooves. And when it does that, it pops the fuel line off. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to do this now while you guys are watching. See if I can get it to go with one hand. There we go, got it on. Now let's turn it a little bit, pop this fuel line off. There we go, fuel line is off. Not too bad of, not a lot of fuel. Again, it's not gonna dump like gallons, but it is gonna splash. and you're gonna wanna wipe that up. Look at that, how gross this thing is. So before I undo any of these bolts, I am gonna be cleaning that up. I actually thought this thing was just that dark, but it looks like, you know, as the fuel spilt, you can see how quickly all that gunk came off. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this whole area right now before we get into the fuel tank. So I'm gonna do that. All right, now that I got that cleaned off, as you can see, it looks almost brand new. It was really dirty. I'm not sure where all that grime came from. I did buy this car used, it has about 84,000 miles on it. I took a brush, you know, kind of brushed around it. I kind of really get all of it in. Really go too crazy, but just want to get most of that dirt out of the way, most of that grime. So now you got to undo the screws that go around this cap. So you can kind of see all of them there. So we're gonna go ahead and get these screws. I've heard from other people that sometimes these get stuck and they've stripped and things like that. So take your time, use some pressure, you know, making sure you're not stripping them. And, you know, let's go ahead and get all those out. All right, so no car project is complete without a few problems, you know, running into issues while you're doing it. So what did I run into? Well, I ran into some stripped out Phillips head screws. So this one and this one right here were not coming out at all. I tried cutting them into flatheads. They still weren't coming out. They were just falling apart. I had PV blaster on them. They were soaking. Really couldn't get them out. I ended up just drilling them out, and I'm going to use some self-tapping screws with some thread sealant to replace them. So not a big deal, but yeah, just want to kind of, you know, show everybody, you know, what happened there. You know, this stuff happens. So now I got to remove the fuel hanger. So this piece is pretty big. It's pretty tall. Another issue that I'm running into is the roll bar is in the way. So if you have a Blackbird Fabworks RZ roll bar on your NC, you can't lift this piece out of the way straight up. You hit the roll bar right here at the top. So I got to remove this plastic piece. Mine's only held on by 2 clips right now. So I'm going to go remove those. They're on the back. They're kind of hard to get to. So I got to reach around, you know, up here and around the car. And then, yeah, got to get this removed. So that way I can move it out to the back, pull it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, I got the fuel hanger out. I was able to get it out without removing the entire back panel. That panel's kind of a pain in the ass to get back in with the Blackbird Fabworks roll bar, but this housing actually compresses. So this actually is a spring right here, and the housing compresses so you can make it shorter. So what I ended up doing is taking it, pushing this thing together. So as you can see, compressing that spring, shortening the size of this thing, and I was able to get it up and out of there. And of course I had to kind of maneuver the float out, so be careful with the float, getting it out of there. Fuel was a little bit messy, so definitely make sure you have some paper towels nearby. But now we're gonna go ahead and get the old pump out, new pump in. So you can see these clips right here, they come off pretty easily. Also, you might be able to do this with one hand in front of you all, so I'll try to do that if I can. But there's these clips all the way around. 1, 2, 3. Looks like I can't. I'm gonna need 2 hands, but yeah, pretty much you're gonna undo these clips that are found all the way around the unit, and then this part should pull out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. See if I can prop the phone up, make it a little easier. That popped right off. There's just a little clip that holds this on. This little tiny clip right here holds the float on, so I'll get that out of the way. It makes it a little bit easier to look in here. Okay, so now I can see what I am working with. So I got that, there we go. It looks like there's this last clip right here. So I got that's the 3rd clip. All right, should be able to pull this now out from this. All right. Filter looks gross. There are metal shavings on my filter. This car is 84,000 miles. I bought this car, you know, used. So I bought a new filter. The fuel pump itself does not come with the filter. So I bought an OEM one. Goodwin Racing had it in stock. Got it shipped out pretty quickly. So thanks Goodwin Racing. The new pump just comes with 2 O-rings and the stock spacer. So now we got to get this OEM filter off. Use my plastic tool on these ones. Seem to be a little bit harder. All right, now we're going to move on to removing the filter. So removing the filter, there are 3 tabs all the way around the filter. You do need to remove all 3 of those tabs. There's also 2 right here on this part. So you're going to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 4, and let's get 3 popped back on. So let me get 3 past it, and let's go get number 4 now, and 5. So here's the last one right here. Again, these plastic tools are really nice for things like this. You don't really have to worry about breaking stuff as much. Even if you did break these tabs, wouldn't matter because we're replacing this filter right now. So totally okay. There we go. That had a lot of pressure. Look at that, my pump came right out. So pump slid right out. That's interesting that happened. We're gonna go ahead and push it back because I need to get this clip off. Looks like I'm gonna need maybe a flathead. I'll see if I can do it with my plastic tool. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go get some long nose and needle nose pliers, make that a little bit easier. It's a little deep in kind of a socket. Let me turn around so you can kind of see. So it's kind of deep in that socket. You're just gonna press that tab down and that will pull right out. So we're gonna go ahead and get those those pliers. All right, got the pliers. Go ahead and pull this plug out of there. Slid it right out of the housing. Make sure you get the O-rings out. You're gonna wanna replace your O-rings. So as you can see, my pump, the O-rings did not come off on this shaft. There's a spacer and there's supposed to be 2 O-rings here. So since those did not come out, I'm gonna have to go ahead and get like a little tool. You might be able to see in there, there's the O-rings back there. I'm gonna do a little like hook tool and pull those out. There we go. I got various hook tools, so I'm gonna see which one works best to get down in here. I'm gonna try the 90 first. That's a little too steep an angle. So we're gonna go with a little less aggressive one. And there we go. It looks like there was only one in there. You can see it is actually a little swollen, it looks like. Likely from just sitting in fuel for so long, this thing's just swollen up. It's kind of hard too. Doesn't feel as pliable as it should be. Again, 84,000 miles, kind of to be expected. So now we're gonna go ahead and prep the new pump. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, everything looks, the same. One thing about these pumps, so one thing I did see online on another clip is that these are 38 millimeter. So, you just want to look at the pump, make sure it's the right size. Visibly, I'm gonna go ahead and say that looks to be the same size. Let's go ahead and put on that new filter. That way it looks, just like that pump. That's pretty much what we're doing, is we're just gonna mimic the look of that pump. Pull off this cap. There we go. The cap is off. I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the cap on the other end as well. All right, here's our new filter, and we're just gonna wanna mimic how it's on this factory filter. So factory filter, it is pointed this way. So it's gonna go on right like that. So I'll just go ahead and press that on there. As you can see, night and day difference between the 2 filters. Definitely recommend changing your filter while you're doing this. You might as well. You already got the car all the way to that point. Most of the time it's worth doing it while you're in there. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and do the spacer and then the O-rings. All right, here we go. Open it up. All right, there's my new spacer, and let me get my O-rings out. There we go, and there are the O-rings. These O-rings definitely feel more pliable. I can already tell just by feeling them that they feel a little bit more pliable, but they also do look to be a little bit smaller. A lot of times when rubber sits in, a fluid, it will sometimes expand over time. It looks like that may have happened in this case. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and open up the lube. You're gonna wanna use lube on your O-rings. All right, and then it goes spacer, O-ring. So we're gonna go ahead and do the spacer first. So it looks like on the factory, it doesn't really look like this might matter what way it goes. Does have some lines on one side and not the other. So I'm gonna put the line side down because it looks like on the factory filter, that's how most of the lines are. Then we're gonna go ahead and put on our O-rings. So we'll get one on. All right, and go ahead and put the second one on. All right, now we're gonna wanna lube these O-rings, and that is critical because if you do not do this, it is gonna be a pain to slide this thing back on. These things are pretty much pressure fitted, so you wanna make sure that your O-rings are gonna be able to go on nice and easily. So let's go ahead and squeeze out some of this silicone lube. Doesn't really matter how heavy you go, the gasoline's gonna pretty much, immediately mix this stuff in. It'll fall apart pretty quickly. It'll dilute in your gasoline, so not an issue at all. So I'm gonna go pretty heavy, especially on that upper lip, because that's where it's gonna be pressing into the housing. This is again a part that, some people said is a challenge on this car. All right, so you can see this pump can only go in one way at this point. It's gonna go in like this. All right, mine is in place. So now it's about pressure, and you really gotta push this on quite hard. You are trying to seat this pump in place. There we go. Pumped right into place, popped right in. Those O-rings are set. Now we're just gonna do a reassemble. So we're gonna go ahead and plug our pump connection in. All right, pump connection is in. Now we're gonna put our pump back into the housing where it was. And I remember this thing wanted to go in its own certain way. Sorry about that, phone fell. You get a phone stand for future videos. All right, put this back in place. Actually, the bottom of my housing looks gross, so I'm gonna hit this with some air real quick and clean some of this gunk out of here. All right, I went ahead and hit this with some air, knocked out, there's a bunch of gunk on the bottom that kind of like sat at the bottom of the tank, so I didn't want that to be in there after doing all this work. That's definitely worth just, cleaning it up and getting it out of there. All right, now I gotta kind of see, okay, well, wait, does this go back together? All right, so looks like this is wrong, so I gotta turn it a little bit. Make sure all my hooks line up where they should go, which it's gonna be that long hook there. These are really the two that you could use to align, just use the long hooks. So long hook, if those are both lined up, your other one's gonna go right here. Boom, there we go, got that on. And now we're just gonna head ahead and snap this float into place. Float goes right here, and it snaps right into place. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and push this into place. All right, getting the float back on was actually a little tricky. So what I had to do is pinch this with some needle nose pliers and then push it into the place. And then there's a little groove where to let this little lip go above it. So you push it in place while you're holding this in, and then you'll be able to pop that into place. So now that it's reassembled, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in the car. All right, so I got it back in, put the bolts back in. I ended up using 2 self-tappers right here. This one ended up being a little bigger of a hole, so I used the bigger one there, smaller one over here. I did replace some of the bolts because I did drop some. So if you do drop them down here, they are almost impossible to get to. So if you do end up dropping any of the bolts down in here, go to Ace Hardware. They did have some perfect replacements. They were exactly the same size, a little bit nicer looking Phillips head too on the end of them, so I think they'll last a little bit longer. They did look a little beefier next to the stock one, so I might honestly replace all the rest of the stock ones down the road because they do seem to be a little bit weaker design of the bolt head. But yeah, now you just pop on your fuel line, so this just slides right on and literally pops into place. There we go, nice and tight. Give it a little shake, give it a little pull, make sure it's all on there. All right, now you're gonna plug the lid back in and then put in those 3 screws that hold that in, and then you'll put back on your plastic cover. And once you do that, you'll start doing the side trim, and then you're done. So one thing you might want to do before you bolt it all up is check to see if you have any leaks. So the best way to do this is go ahead and turn your key. You'll hear the pump prime. See if I can catch that noise for you. Give it a few turns of the key. That way you're building up pressure in the fuel system. And then you can just check back in under there. If you're leaking gas, you'd most likely smell it, but maybe you could have a small leak. So, good to check with your hand, and kind of feel around where the fuel line is. I don't smell any gas. Didn't feel any moisture or anything like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this cover back on and put the plastic back together.